take a second to listen to this clip about possible rate hikes by the end of 2023 and how this is really going to have an impact not only for the global markets, but Palantir Technologies.
Thanks.
So are you expecting a pause? What sort of commentary do you think we'll hear from Fed Chair Powell afterwards?
We are expecting a pause next week. Indeed, Fed Chair Powell and a number of other governors and presidents have indicated that they've seen enough in terms of slower inflation. And they're also concerned about the run-up in bond yields and how that's intensified financial conditions.
Good.
So are you expecting that this to be a pause? And in other words, there could be another hike in the offing, in the coming, or that this is probably the pause that ends this cycle?
Well, there could very well be another hike. Certainly, we're looking at December.
Pause it right there. You hear what she says, that there's likely possibly going to be another hike by the end of the year, even though we will likely have a pause next week. Now, what we're seeing here is 10-year and 30-year Treasury notes that are really increasing their interest rates, which brings confidence out of the market because in the finance world, these T-bills are considered risk-free in terms that they are government-backed. Now, talking about that and going to Palantir Technologies, with the focus of this video is Palantir is more speculative and much more volatile compared to the general market, and we have the third consecutive day of Palantir experiencing losses, and which is why we need to focus on support right now, and especially with earnings coming November 2nd pre-market, why this can be really critical to possibly get some great attractive prices for Palantir. Now, if you're new or a returning viewer, hit that like button, subscribe for daily videos, and of course, I'm not a financial advisor. Take everything I say with a grain of salt. If you want to get up to 12 free stocks on Webull, check out the affiliate link down in the description. But let's pull up Palantir Technologies, look at the price action that we do have today. Now, Palantir is sitting right at about $15, down about 1.4% on the day, with trading volumes at about 39 million. We had talked about Palantir zooming in here with this last bullish hammer that was formed, with this cup and this handle that was formed being rejected. And we're seeing the bears that are taking control and the bulls that are starting to lose as that support level of 1521 was lost here by that bullish hammer that was formed. Now, Palantir sitting at the 15s is interesting because if we zoom out, it is starting to trade not like what we possibly predicted last quarter earnings, which was holding support at about the 16s right here, possibly testing resistance at the 1844. With the news that we have from interest rate hikes and with the pause that we do have and with the Treasury note yield rates, we are seeing selling that is starting to increase across the market. So now it's more important to possibly look at this consolidation phase between the 13 and the 15, which at least there is a good foundational support level that we've had months of consolidation for Palantir trading here. If we were to zoom out and looking past that, Palantir needs to look more into the $11 zone. This right here is the last support savior for Palantir before it were to come down more. However, I don't think this is still going to happen because there are still many bullish catalysts for Palantir, especially with earnings coming up. I think we might see a short-term increase in actual valuation for Palantir, followed by a decent correction after earnings, even I think if earnings is beat. And talking about that and why Palantir is still great in terms of a long-term growth stop metric is the way that it's outpacing its business service peers. We saw it being rated as the #1 AI product in terms of an AI vendor, even beating Google. And where we are sitting right now, Palantir has done very well in terms of its year returns. And it's important to understand that Palantir has already gained year to date basically 138%. And this is outpacing the business service group that the median sector is about 2.7% on average. So it's doing well, very well. And in terms of the sector and the industry that it falls in, which is the technologies sector, it ranks #1 right here, gaining about 19.5%. That's the average on there. So Palantir is doing much better than a lot of its competitors. And this is where we focus on earnings per share. For the actual Wall Street analyst, there's 5 bullish revisions. We've talked about this a lot at 6 cents. So Wall Street is really putting Palantir at a very high standards. And as we go into earnings, this is what is going to be specific to look for and what to analyze. And this is really paying attention not to just what the earnings in terms of revenue and earnings per share is going to report, but guidance is going to be really important because a lot of people have their eyes for Palantir in terms of a long-term growth stock. And I think right now, a lot of people are sitting on the sidelines waiting to see where Palantir is going to kind of settle in terms of price action after after earnings. And guidance is going to have a large impact on that in terms of volatility, because Palantir right now does have a high premium, and you do have to pay a high price for the stock compared to the earnings that they do bring in, and also looking at the revenue metrics. Now, looking into Palantir Q3 earnings, billings is going to be important because billings accelerations was noticed in the previous quarter, and they are expecting similar quarter-over-quarter and year-over-year accelerations in this quarter, especially with the AIP, which is Palantir's artificial intelligence platform technology, and that leads into customer growth. What we saw last quarter was like a 38% growth, I believe. That's off the top of my head. But continuing to see customer additions, and with the leverage of AI that they are using, also seeing a net retention expansion, seeing more customers that are continuing to stick with Palantir, and looking into that guidance and expansion into customers, bringing more growth in terms of revenue and brings more maturity among Palantir stock. So I think not just looking at the actual numbers, but looking at future guidance is really going to have an impact on its share price, and especially AI's impact on financials. Because if we look at AIP right now, Palantir, this is a recent software within the last 6 months that has been released, which means that a lot of these quarter earnings in the past, they have not been able to capture what the growth of AIP has brought to Palantir. And that's right here with their boot camp that they do have, basically saying that they will give these clients a use case for this type of technology or the other types of technologies which they have, which are Foundry, Gotham, and Apollo. That all that information and all of that types of predictions, that has not been captured. So we have not seen factual reporting about what AIP has really brought in yet. And this is why it's going to be very critical in terms of guidance going forward. And right now, what we're seeing in terms of fair value estimates is at about $11 per share, which is indicating that Palantir is overvalued right now. And I don't disagree with that in terms of a metric at all. But in terms of that, in terms of emotion and momentum and trendiness and hype going into Palantir for November 2nd, which is now less than a week away, I could see likely a short-term growth spurt right here, just in terms of momentum that is disregarding the actual key fundamentals behind the company. But looking at a long-term growth metric, which is completely different from the short-term perspective, this is going to be a lot more critical, looking into its guidance, looking into its fair value, and also what are some of the other top analysts that are basically looking at Palantir. We talked about Suze Orman, but looking into ARK Invest, which is basically Kathy Wood, she was an early investor of Palantir and likely took a big loss because Palantir is still nearly down 50% from its all-time highs. But what we're seeing with Palantir, and especially from these large fund managers, was that PLTR was actually the largest additions to their holding during the second quarter. And this is even interesting actually after Kathy Wood was probably beat pretty hard in terms of a PLTR portfolio, as she added 2.58 million shares of Palantir during the third quarter. And what we're seeing with that and continuing with that is that also we had that AI study that released that Palantir was the top performer in the artificial intelligence and data science category. And this is from a very large, incredible study that ran their AI platform and how it enables these organizations to bring generative AI to their operations. And that's going to be a big thing, considering that Palantir is actually seeing its 9-day simple moving average falling 1 penny below its 21-day simple moving average, which we saw. And this is moving lower on Friday. And likewise, what we're seeing is this downtrend in Palantir. And typically, this is okay, because what we do have, like I said, are consolidation periods between this $13.50 and this $14 like level support zone that we've seen, talking about in this area right here that we saw for a few months after Q2 earnings, after we had that correction of about 25% from $20 down to the 15. But the last savior and the last support resistance basically here was from that August of 2022 high of 1162. So right now, I think the bears are in control, but we will see if there's going to be some momentum and trendiness and possibly what will happen in terms of the global economy that could bring a short-term run up. But Right now, sitting on the sidelines watching Palantir, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. Of course, with a lot of risk and uncertainty that's ahead for the stock and a lot of speculation, watching the price settle and try to find its grounding after earnings could possibly be the best bet, considering even if it goes up in price, just so that way you don't lose throwing all your eggs in one basket. But thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed and learned something. What is your opinion on Palantir? Let me know down in the discussion and let's start a conversation. I'll catch you guys later. Peace out and have a great weekend.